Lottery picks being traded. It's looking like it's going to happen, including a couple of picks that are right near the top. I've got the latest on that, plus the Celtics taking offers on Jaylen Brown and Derrick White, why Boston could look extremely different next season. But first, I was wrong, and I couldn't be happier about it. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Right now, about 70% of you watching this, you're not subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button. So first and foremost, the NBA Finals. Now, the Pacers, I didn't believe they're up 2-1 in the finals after winning game 3 last night. Did a phenomenal job, Indiana did, protecting home court. And now I think we've got a real series. What's funny is that the Thunder are still the favorites, despite being down 2-1, the betting favorite to win it all. And maybe that's just what the Pacers need. They need to continue to be marketed as the underdogs because they seem to be taking that personally. And here was the key in last night's game. Just 13 turnovers for the Indiana Pacers compared to 17 for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the Pacers won the turnover battle. That's so key to what makes the Thunder the Thunder. They enjoy a turnover discrepancy in their favor almost every night because their defense is so good at forcing turnovers, specifically live ball turnovers, and they do a pretty good job hanging on to the basketball. But give a lot of credit to the Pacers defense. You look at that, 5 steals for TJ McConnell, the TJ McConnell game. What a performance from him. And then 27 points for Benedict Mathurin off the bench. That's what really allowed the Pacers to surge ahead and get this win. Plus 16 for Mathurin, plus 12 for McConnell. Obi Toppin, give him some credit as well. Plus 18, plus minus, not always the best stat, but I think it shows how powerful the Pacers bench was there in Pawnee. I picked Thunder in 5 going into the series. Clearly, I was wrong about that, and I love it. That means we're getting more basketball. We're getting a more exciting series than what was being predicted, and now we've got, I think, a real series on the line. And personally, I think it could come down to as simple as whoever wins game 4 wins this series. Going to be a big one coming up. Let me know your thoughts on who takes the series in the comment section down below. Do you think the Pacers get it done and get 2 more wins, or do the Thunder come surging back? But jumping over to the trade market, Michael Scotto had something really interesting from Hoops Hype this morning, that the Philadelphia 76ers have engaged the San Antonio Spurs about moving up to the number 2 pick. Most likely, the 76ers will be doing that in order to select Dylan Harper. Scotto does say, for now, the Sixers have zeroed in on 4 NBA draft prospects with the number 3 pick, including a private workout last week with VJ Edgecombe and Ace Bailey visiting Philadelphia next week. So this is one of the things that I love about this year's draft, that not only is there a lot of talent available in this draft, a lot of exciting players, but there's also a lot of maneuverability. There's a lot of flexibility when we look at draft positions. Yes, we all know the Dallas Mavericks are going to take Cooper Flagg number 1 overall, and nothing's going to change that. They are picking him. That's it. End of story. Might as well submit the pick right now. But after that, there's plenty of intrigue. Yeah, the Spurs have made it known that they're probably taking Dylan Harper with the number 2 pick, but they've left a little bit of that door open so that they can listen to trade offers. Other things can happen. They can figure out what they want to do. Now, most likely, the Spurs will just wind up taking Dylan Harper. But why not leave the door open if you're San Antonio, find out what other teams will be willing to give up in order to get up to that pick? And you look at the 76ers, could they package together like a future pick plus the number 3 pick in order to move up to number 2? That could have some value to it. Could there be a player? I'm just saying, hypothetically, what if the 76ers said, hey, we'll give you Jared McCain, who was on track to be the rookie of the year last year, plus the number 3 pick for number 2. I'm not saying Philly should do it. I'm just saying there's some things that they could put together that would at least perk up the Spurs' ears and force them to listen. And so that's where I think this draft gets really, really interesting, because you've got so many teams. Again, you've got a lot of talent, but you also have so many teams that are willing to listen, that are being open-minded, and are willing to move out of their draft position, starting with San Antonio at number 2. Is it likely the Spurs trade the 2nd pick? No. But Philadelphia right now seems to be a mover and shaker. They are exploring moving up to 2, but they're also looking at moving back. So if they can't get up to 2 to get Dylan Harper, they may see Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, some of these other guys as all equal in value. So they're going to entertain moving back to 4 and a deal with Charlotte, moving back to 5, moving back to 6. Utah and Washington both feeling a certain kind of way after dropping back as far as they possibly could on draft night. Look at that. Utah falling 4 spots. That's the most they could possibly move down in the draft lottery. Washington also moving down as many spots as they possibly could, with Dallas, San Antonio, Philly all moving up. So they're certainly hurting from that, but could they package together some pieces to try to move back up in a deal with the Philadelphia 76ers? For example, if you're Philly, could you get the 5th pick plus a future first, like Utah's got that 2027 Lakers first? Could you get that first round pick plus the 5th pick in exchange for 3 and get the player that you thought you were going to get anyway at 3 at 5 in a deal with the Utah Jazz? That's something similar to what we saw the Boston Celtics do years ago in the Jason Tatum trade when they flipped Markelle Fultz, who was the number 1 pick, for the 3 pick, still got their guy in Jason Tatum, and then picked up a future asset. So perhaps the 76ers have that kind of move on their mind. But on top of that, you've got teams like the Toronto Raptors who see the East as wide open and want to go try to win right now. They've been rumored to be in the mix and trying to really get themselves firmly in the mix, according to Mark Stein, in the KD trade situation, Kevin Durant. And then you've got Houston at 10. They've got clear motivation to move out of that pick. You also have the San Antonio Spurs at 14. They could be ready to win right now. Even if they don't move number 2, they could move the 14th pick in the NBA draft. So that adds a lot of intrigue. You've got a number of lottery teams right there that maybe don't want to add another young player to their roster. I've talked about this before, but Houston could even play Reed Shepherd in their rotation last year. Are they really going to draft somebody at 10 that they're going to play this next season as they look to make that push into a contender status in the Western Conference? Probably not. So it'd make a lot of sense for them to move the 10th pick if they can and get a player that can step in and contribute immediately. Again, the same holds true potentially for the Toronto Raptors, who want to go try to make a push in the East. Don't forget they added Brandon Ingram at the trade deadline this past year, and the San Antonio Spurs. So I think there's so many movable picks in the lottery and so many talented players to choose from that we could see some real fireworks. And on top of that, look at how many teams have multiple picks. We talked about the Orlando Magic, plenty of incentive for them to either move up or move these picks. Talked about them a little bit yesterday, trying to package together some guys like Jonathan Isaac, Cole Anthony with these 2 draft picks, 16 and 25, to potentially make a move and go add some help. They certainly could use some shooting, some more shot creation from the backcourt. You also have teams like the Brooklyn Nets. They've got 4 picks in this year's draft. They have number 19. They have 26, 27, in addition to number 8. So they've got a lot of movable draft capital. There's a lot of motivation to make deals to get things done and a lot of picks that are available. So we could see some major fireworks on draft night, and keep an eye on the Philadelphia 76ers. The closer we get to the draft, the more it feels like so much of the draft is going to hinge on them. Do they move up? Do they move down? And in either case, who winds up going at number 3? Because there will be a domino effect across the rest of the draft. All right, speaking of some big moves that could be made on draft night and beyond, we all know the Boston Celtics are looking to shed salary. They don't want to be a $500 million payroll next season, and that is what they're currently on pace to be. So that means they're going to try to move off of some players. They're going to try to trade away some salaries and drop below that second tier apron. How much money do they have to clear off their books to drop below the second tier apron? Well, north of $20 million they would have to clear. And remember, they're not going to be able to trade all these guys for just pure cap space. They're probably going to have to take back some salaries. So we're probably talking about multiple moves here for the Boston Celtics in order for them to drop below that second tier apron, ease some of the luxury tax penalties and things like that, plus the second apron restrictions that come into play. So the main guys that they've been talking about trading: Kristaps Porzingis, Sam Hauser, Drew Holiday. Holiday, $32.4 million. He's got 3 years left on a contract. That could be tricky. Porzingis, though, an expiring contract, $30.7 million. And then Sam Hauser, much easier to move at just $10 million, but 4 years under contract for him. So that could be a complicating factor. However, according to Shams Charania, yet teams are calling it to talk trades with the Celtics, but they're not talking Porzingis. They're not talking about Holiday. They're not talking about Hauser. They're calling the Celtics and saying, let's talk Jaylen Brown. Let's talk Derrick White. And this makes a lot of sense. The Celtics want to move their other guys. They don't want to move Jaylen Brown. They don't want to move Derrick White. 2 of their top 3 players, along with Jason Tatum. They want to hang on to those guys. They want to have a gap year next year, maybe get a high draft pick even, and then go again in 2026, 2027 in that season. So that right now is the plan for the Boston Celtics. But opposing teams are calling up going, we're not that interested in Porzingis. We're not that interested in Drew Holiday. Like, sure, they have their merits, but let's talk Jaylen Brown. Let's talk Derrick White. You guys really want to save some money? Let's talk about the big names. Let's talk about the guys that teams are really interested in. So, would the Celtics actually move Jaylen Brown or Derrick White? And the word is, according to Shams Charania, they are listening. They're listening on trades for these guys. Doesn't mean they're going to be as motivated to move them. And look, that does matter. We saw it last year with the Brooklyn Nets. They were motivated to move Dennis Schroeder. They were motivated to move Dorian Finney-Smith. And so they took deals that were less than what they were asking for. They asked for first-round picks in both situations. They took multiple seconds in both situations. However, when it came to Cam Johnson, somebody they believe was part of their future or could be, when it came to Nick Claxton, they held their ground. They were not willing to budge on their asking price on those guys, and they didn't wind up moving. I think we could see a similar thing play out here with Boston, where they would be a motivated seller with Kristaps Porzingis. They may set a certain asking price. They may say, we want a first-round draft pick for Jrue Holiday, but will they actually get that? Will they settle for less? Probably. They're going to be more of a motivated seller for those guys that they probably don't see as part of their long-term future. They love Jrue Holiday, don't get me wrong, but he just turned 35. By the way, happy birthday today, Jrue Holiday. But there are concerns about paying Jrue Holiday when he's turning, say, 37, paying him $37 million. And we know the defense falls off as players get older. And that is what makes Jrue Holiday such a special player. It's his defense. So they will be more of a motivated seller, more willing to work with teams on Jrue Holiday, on Porzingis, on Sam Hauser. But on a guy like Jaylen Brown, they will set a very high asking price and demand that. But it's also possible that asking price gets met. I mean, look around the NBA. You look at how competitive things are. You look at how many teams in the East right now see an opportunity and say, look, this conference, particularly with the Celtics, probably having a gap year next year. The conference is wide open. That doesn't mean there aren't talented teams and quality teams in the East, but is there anybody in the East that you look at and say, that's it, we can't beat that team, no reason for us to go for it? No, it's the opposite. A lot of teams in the East, especially when we look at teams like Orlando, Detroit, these are teams that look around and say, why not us? Say, we could be the team. Look, Indiana made the run this year. Why can't we be the team to make the run this coming season? And so I think there is a lot of motivation to go make win-now moves, and that can matter with a player like a Jaylen Brown. Would a team be willing to give up a real haul? And then in the Western Conference, you look at the race to keep up with everybody else. You've got, depending on how you view the Portland Trailblazers and perhaps the New Orleans Pelicans, you've got 14 teams at least that fancy themselves as playoff caliber teams next season. That's going to create an arms race. A lot of teams looking to go out there and buy. It may wind up being an advantage for sellers on the market, given how much demand there is to buy right now. So if the Boston Celtics are listening on Jaylen Brown, are listening on Derrick White, it's possible that a team in either conference could talk themselves into giving up a haul for either one of those players. So I think the Celtics are playing this perfectly. We all know they need to make moves for financial reasons, but it may not be the worst thing in the world if they just listen on Jaylen Brown, listen on Derrick White, because you never know what's going to come your way. And it's possible they could kill two birds with one stone here. They could find a move that saves them significant salary, win a Jaylen Brown trade or a Derrick White trade, but not only does that, also provides them with significant assets to build the next iteration of the Boston Celtics after they take essentially a gap year in the 2025-2026 season. So I think the Celtics are smart to listen on Jaylen Brown and Derrick White. I think my question for all of you, though, is what would you be willing to give up to get either one of those players? What should teams be willing to give up to get Derrick White or to get Jaylen Brown? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Remember, Jaylen Brown has that big contract that's now on the books. 29 years old, $53 million, $57 million, $61 million, $65 million in the 28-29 season. What are you willing to give up to get him? And then what about Derrick White? $28 million, $30 million, $33 million, and a player option on a $35 million contract. Remember, he will be 34 going on 35 years old when that final year player option kicks in. So not saying you shouldn't trade for those guys, both very talented players, but what should teams be willing to give up to get Jaylen Brown or Derrick White? And do you think the Celtics will be impressed enough to actually move on from them? Again, Indiana Pacers, let's go. We've got an exciting NBA Finals. I love it. I was wrong. Pacers, I apologize. You guys are playing some phenomenal basketball. Let's go. Pacers, would love to see them get it done, but give me your thoughts on the finals in the comment section, the Celtics, the trade opportunities at the top of the draft. Will the Spurs really trade out of the number 2 pick. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget, subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin. Until next time, see ya and stay safe.